Welcome to the Button List podcast, coming at you live from Beating Dreams in Dallas, Texas, featuring Allison
and Heather. During this broadcast, we will delve into the stories of famous gemstones, past and present, looking to amuse, delight, and possibly disturb you.
We record live weekly, and we invite you to join in the online conversation every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube.
Just a warning, sometimes we get a little spicy.
Please be aware that the following broadcast may contain mature content.
Thank you for supporting small businesses.
And we hope you enjoy our show.
We are going to continue with the Pearl of, how do you say it, Heather?
Lao Tzu.
Part 2, but first, we are going to recap what has happened thus far in the story of the Pearl of Lao Tzu. So I will go ahead and turn that over to Heather to say when last we left our hero.
So when first we met our hero.
True.
Our hero was a giant pearl
As I say, nobody in this story is a hero.
That's true. The pearl didn't do anything wrong.
The pearl was the ingenue in the story.
Yes. So the pearl was in a giant clam, and a diver died trying to get to it, and it was brought up with the diver, and it looked like it had the face of Allah on it, and because dragon reasons, yes. So it looked like it had the pearl of Allah, or the face of Allah, and then an American acquired it named William Cobb, who, acquired it. He was Filipino-American, and he acquired it, and then he ran away with it, left his 8 kids and his wife in the Philippines, joined the Merchant Marines, and traveled with his true love, the pearl. And
meanwhile, his wife and children were enduring the Japanese occupation of the Philippines.
Yeah, he left right before that.
He was
Scarpered.
such a peachy human.
He was. He joined the Merchant Marine, which meant he didn't have to deal with any of the bad stuff either. I mean, good for him. But he had a suitcase with the pearl in it. And then there was the sale of his pearl for $200,000 to Victor Barbish, who has become a verb, as we all might remember from last time. Barbishing is going to be a verb maybe forever now. So Victor Barbish owns it. He is quite it would, it was enough for the stories that Cobb told about the Pearl of Allah, and then he met a mysterious Chinese man named Mr. Li who said it was the Pearl of Lao Tzu, and he himself, Lao Tzu himself, carved faces in this pearl and then put it in a clam, and then it just kept getting from clam to larger clam and getting bigger over time. So this pearl has quite a lot more history than it has shine to it. The shine
because it's
is
a non-nacreous pearl, so it has no shine.
The shine is the sunshine blown up.
Everybody says by these people.
Yes.
First Cobb, then Barbish, and trust me, it only gets crazier.
And there's a Peter Hoffman, who owns a 1/3 stake, will briefly appear.
He will appear at the end of this tale.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Barbish is really the central fool of the story. He's the villain, he's the hero, he's the Barbisher.
Yeah, he fulfills many roles.
He really does.
In this tale. And
none of them good.
We also should strive to make marry a verb at some point.
We should.
Marrying in the
not that
conjugal sense should be a thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we'll work that out when it's not forced.
So, is there more recap, or are we done with the recap?
Oh, and all of this comes from an article that we read, written by Michael LaPointe for the June 2018 issue of The Atlantic. And it's a fabulous article.
Really, really good.
But seriously, there's even more detail in the article.
It is. It's a very long article. We showed you.
It's like a book.
Yeah, it's like a small book, like a whole magazine unto itself.
Yes,
and
but fascinating.
And yes, I will
post a link in Discord.
If I can post a link in Discord, I will. The Atlantic is very assiduous with their paywalling, so I think I managed to get myself a free copy with my trial subscription that I can download and then link to, but no promises.
But we should link it anyway in case anyone has a subscription.
Correct.
Oh,
yay!
Mary can marry it.
Mary can marry it. See, there we go.
All right.
All right, you're verbing already.
I know.
Okay, so now, all right, so now we're going to turn to another character in this story whose name is Laura Lintner Horn. And Laura Lintner Horn is a woman who was born in suburban Illinois, and her mother was a divorcee. So at that time, and this is probably in the 60s, 50s, 60s, so at that time, it was considered seemlier for Laura's mother to give her up so that Laura's mother could attract a new husband without the burden of a child from a previous marriage. So what the arrangement that was come to was that Laura's grandparents posed as her parents, her mother and her aunt posed as her elder sisters. So despite the fact that Laura's mother was way advanced in years, and acquaintances and friends of Laura's did question this particular dichotomy of, are you
your mom has gray hair.
Your mom has gray hair and also is, was probably menopausal when you were born. But whatever. It's one of those just buy the bit and live with it, and it's all a facade, and everyone pretty much knows it's a facade, but as long as we don't poke holes in the facade, then everything is fine. So then in 1957, who should meet Laura's elder sister, aka her aunt? This was not her mother, this was her aunt. In 1957, does anyone want to guess who met her aunt in 1957?
I have a guess.
Okay, I know you have a guess. Who else has a guess? Anybody have a guess? Elvis. Actually,
Elvis
does appear
in this story,
but later, not now. Later, not Big Bird.
Doesn't appear.
There's no Big Bird. Mm-mm.
Can I say?
Yes. Who is it?
Victor Barbish.
Shocking. And I think I did not actually put this in my notes, but I think they met in like Atlantic City or someplace crazy like that. Yeah. So Barbish meets Laura's aunt and marries her in 1957. And so now Barbish starts spreading the tale that he actually had a brief fling with Laura's biological mother and that he was actually her father. So now Laura, who is still quite young at this point, is both finding out that her elder sister is actually her mother, and apparently her elder sister, now mother, had an illicit affair with her aunt's husband, Victor Barbish.
Totally healthy.
Yeah.
Information.
Hi, Keiko. And yet, she still goes to live with them. In her quotes, so this reporter, Michael LaPointe, actually met with her a couple of times.
Yeah.
And in her quotes from later life, she basically expressed that she just wanted a normal family so badly because obviously in the family in which she grew up, once again, the facade of her mother was her elder sister, her aunt was her elder sister, her grandparents were her parents. Like, obviously this child is picking up on the fact that some of this is complete and utter bullshit. So, to escape her utterly bullshit family, she goes to live with Victor Barbish.
It's just Barbishing.
Yeah.
She lives in a pile of Barbish.
So, Barbish starts saying that he is her natural father, that, her mother's her mother, not her sister, and they did the, hoochie coo, and she was the result.
All while being married to her mother's sister.
Yeah. So, Laura lived with the Barbish family on and off for about 50 years through her childhood, and I'm gonna say 2.5 marriages, because they're when we get a little bit later in the story, Laura's third marriage is where things start to fall apart for the whole Laura Barbish milieu that's going on. But
things go much better for Laura.
Yeah. But
spoiler alert.
Of the fun thing that Barbish would do, he would pretend to be abducted by aliens while driving down the highway with Laura in the car. Her relating of events, she said his head would suddenly wrench back and his eyes would roll because the aliens had snatched his body. Laura would grab the wheel and shake him, saying, "Wake up, Vic, wake up!" And he would always wake up just in the nick of time to prevent himself from being pancaked on the side of the road.
Himself and his daughter.
And his daughter, Ward, like, whatever you want to call her. So Laura grew up in this
his barbished daughter.
In this weird-ass household, and wound up in loss prevention. That was her career for most of her life. And she definitely, it seems like, had some unresolved issues that she was taking out through this career, because her stories of that include tackling criminals and once jumping through the window of a car to retrieve stolen items.
She was very into accounting for theft.
Yes.
And people were not.
And so one of the things that she stated to the reporter is that looking back, she's astonished at herself that she fell for all of Barbish's, and there's more Barbishing coming, so just don't you feel like we're done with the Barbishing, because we are not.
We're not even going to get through all of it. We've left some for you to discover on your own.
But she was astonished that she fell for all of that, but she described the Barbish household as almost cult-like in nature. Like, you had to ask permission to do anything, you had to ask permission to speak, you had to ask permission to think. And so she accounts that as a big reason that she was hoodwinked in such a terrible fashion, just because of the atmosphere of the household.
Makes total sense with her extremely healthy family.
Right, exactly.
That she might be looking for stability and find it somewhere that it wasn't.
It doesn't actually exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as probably an escape method, or is it to me now?
Yeah.
Okay. As probably an escape method, Laura got married when she was 18 years old, and it was not...
Oh, I missed that. I skipped over that whole thing. That's okay. You do that.
So she married at 18. He was abusive, and she divorced him. And Victor Barbish told her that he had her ex-husband killed.
Such a great dad.
Seriously. So how she found out that this was not true was she ran into him in Colorado Springs 30 years later. Just that's gonna...
Like, seriously, like, can you imagine, like...
It's someone you don't want to see anyway.
Hi,
You think
I
he's
hate
dead.
you. I thought you were dead. Why are you alive? And why are you in my face?
Yeah.
Like, I cannot even imagine the disconnect
Seriously.
of that meeting.
So she met and married an Elvis impersonator who apparently was a fairly stand-up guy.
He seems like a pretty good guy.
Yeah, he definitely helped raise Lisa, who is her daughter, from when she was a small child, like in the crib, small child, and Elvis impersonator. And Lisa had...
See, we told you Elvis was going to make an appearance.
Yeah. The dad didn't want him dead. The dad wanted to win points. The dad, because not even a dad.
So the question is, why did
Barbish wanted to win some points?
Yeah, why did Barbish want Laura's first husband dead? And the answer is that he didn't really, he just wanted to seem like he was the bestest dad ever. And how crazy is it that I had your ex-husband assassinated equals bestest dad ever?
He also really liked to cultivate...
Hey, Dad, if you're watching...
an aura.
I just want all my exes to live good lives away from me.
Yes, away.
Away,
like, if you're going to do anything, just move them
alive.
farther.
Yeah.
Victor Barbish really enjoyed cultivating this aura and persona of a mob boss, which is why he was telling people he was Al Capone's
exactly.
son. And he liked to set himself, like, he called himself the Godfather of South Florida, or
well, actually, that was his third son-in-law.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And that was after he moved to Sarasota. We're not in Sarasota yet. We're still
but anyway,
in Colorado.
He's definitely the kind of he did a lot of wearing an unbuttoned shirt to let you see the pelt on his chest, and
I love those.
Wearing big gaudy gold jewelry. And so of course he would tell someone that he wanted to impress and keep under his spell that he killed their ex-husband. But he didn't. So her daughter, Lisa, had issues of her own, which is understandable because issues
'Cause
breed
how
issues.
could you not?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so she had a serious alcohol problem and had her license taken away and everything, but she still would drive. And she was killed in an absolutely horrific car wreck.
Yeah.
That was in 2000. She was hit by a fully loaded 18-wheeler and went 200 feet into a cornfield. So Laura obviously was devastated by this loss. She went to the scene looking for anything that she could find. She found a hubcap and a shoe. She still has those now. That's all she had.
Just so
But
tragic.
her husband at the time, the Elvis impersonator, he was also devastated because this is his child. I mean, she's not his biologically, but that doesn't mean he didn't love her like his own. And so he started drinking too much, and he had always smoked a lot of cigars, but he smoked more, and he ended up with stomach cancer and died 30 days after his diagnosis of stomach cancer in 2001. So 2000 is when Lisa died. 2001 is when her husband died. And so Laura's having a really, really rough go of it. She is not mentally all there as is to
Because
be
her
expected.
daughter just died. Her husband just died. Like,
And so
completely
she's
understandable.
old enough. She had an adult daughter, so at this point she's old enough to have a pension because that existed back then. And she sold her house because she just wanted a clean break from all of the sadness, and sold her house. And both her husband and her daughter had life insurance policies, so she was the beneficiary of both of those. And Victor Barbish.
What did she do with all of that money, Heather?
Well, somebody convinced her that she was not in the right frame of mind and people might take advantage of her. So if she signed over all this money and all of these assets to Victor Barbish, he could keep them safe for her. Yeah.
We're just going to take an irony break right now of 3, 2, 1. Yeah. So, continuing. So, in 2005, Victor Barbish moved to Sarasota, Florida. So, he did become Florida man.
Mm-hmm.
He dissolved the world's largest pearl company under some weird pretense of he was so sad that the pearl had brought so much tumult and tragedy to the world, and he really thought the pearl was just supposed to be for, the peace and betterment of mankind. And if you believe that, then there's a bridge and some oceanfront property in Arizona I would like to sell you.
Someday.
So he dissolved the world's largest pearl company and started the Pearl for Peace Foundation, which was supposedly a non-profit foundation whose goal was to raise money to support law enforcement. So basically, he started selling memberships in the Pearl. The memberships ranged from $25 to $600, and anyone who paid a membership fee received a badge with an image of the Pearl and a membership card displaying the slogan, "Let the legend and the legacy live on from generation to generation." George W. Bush was listed as member number 1.
He did
do not believe that he or his office actually knew anything about that or gave any money to the Pearl for Peace Foundation. But at this point, since when has Victor Barbish really cared about truth coloring any of his, descriptions? Also, it is worth a note.
Truth is a color he does not know.
No, it's also worth a note that the Pearl for Peace Foundation actually was one of the roots and precursors to the Blue Lives Matter movement, and we are just going to leave that there with all of the other shady shit.
Yeah. So now Laura has no money because she has
Given
signed over all of it to Victor Barbish. Her father, and so she moved to Sarasota to care for Barbish because he was, definitely getting older and
dying way too slowly.
His barbishing was not slowing down in any way, but he was, and he owned a jewelry store. He owned the jewelry, so his whole thing was the jewelry store and the Pearls for Peace Foundation. So she was raising money for the Pearls for Peace Foundation as part of her, not even her job. That was just what she did out of her heart because she believed him still. And so she would make 30 cold calls a day to solicit donations, and he had a whole script prepared, claiming the money would be spent on disabled agents, death benefits, bulletproof vests, all kinds of other things, none of which was true, which you'll all be shocked to learn.
I'm shocked. I'm
Yes.
so shocked.
I am shocked as well. She estimates that he took in about $5.5 million using this technique as well as others. He kept telling people he was aiming for $20 million, but did actually take in quite a lot of money.
So now let's go ahead and skip ahead to 2007. Laura meets Robert Horn. So she is once divorced, once widowed. This is her third husband. She meets Robert Horn and marries him. And this actually...
But you have to say how they met.
Well, okay, what's the type of dog?
Borzoi.
Okay, so she used to walk her Borzoi dog around the town, and people...
Which, if you're not familiar, is a very distinctive dog breed. Yeah, very fancy dog.
Yes. And so apparently there was a gentleman who also had Borzoi, and so everyone kept asking if they had met. So when she saw the gentleman out one day, she went and introduced herself to him, and, you know, yada, yada, yada. However, and they did actually marry in 2007. However, before that, in a publicity stunt for Barbish's jewelry store, they had a Wiccan officiant marry their dogs in front of the store.
Yeah.
So their dogs actually got married before they did. Just saying.
Without consent, I'm gonna say.
There was no consent. And also so the article said Wiccan minister, which I don't think is right. I just chose officiant as a neutral term. I don't know what the actual appropriate term for... There was no gender specified. So yeah, anyway. So yeah, so their dogs got married and then they got married. And Robert Horn was very excited to join Barbish's family because apparently brain's not his strong.
He's got a big heart.
Robert called Barbish the godfather of Florida. He was very excited to join this kind of family of fame and notoriety. But again,
I mean, the guy owned a Borzoi, you know.
Yeah. So one day,
shy and retiring, not his.
Also, brains, again, not so much his thing. So one day, Barbish calls Horn, his son-in-law, sounding very distressed. And apparently Barbish, you see, had a buyer for the pearl.
Finally! That never happened.
But he lacked the cash to safely transport the pearl. Does anyone want to guess what Horn does? Does Horn say, hey, you are a swindler and a thief, fuck the hell off? Do you think that's what Horn did, Heather?
I don't think that's what Horn did, no.
Well, you read the article, but...
I did.
But audience, what do you think that Horn did
in
this situation? Because I'm pretty sure that it's fairly obvious. Corvus says Horn did something stupid. Corvus is 100% right.
Are they correct?
Horn cuts Barbish a check for $100,000.
As one does for one's new father-in-law.
Yeah. So at this point, okay, so Barbish was making Laura sleep in the jewelry store to protect the merchandise while also accusing her of theft and negligence because things kept disappearing. So now she's newly married. Her husband has just written her father, quote unquote, a check for $100,000, and she's being forced to sleep in a jewelry store whilst being berated for things going missing, supposedly on her watch. So at this point, Laura is like, I used to be in loss prevention. Like, I have resources, and I know I'm not stealing, so I'm gonna find out who is.
Also, Laura has fibromyalgia, which makes sleeping in a store super comfy, and totally something one should do to one's daughter.
So Laura said, but there's a whole like pattern of even from when she was a child. She said she was treated like a second class member of the household, like, you know, barely above a servant. So this fits with the pattern of her relationship with Barbish thus far. But again, she's like, I know I'm not stealing, so let's find out who is. So Laura sets up her own surveillance of the store. Who has a guess as to who was stealing from the jewelry store?
I have a guess again.
Okay, does anybody besides Heather have a guess as to who was stealing from the store?
I bet you all do. I bet you're all correct.
I bet you all have a guess, and I bet you're all right.
It was Tallyfet.
It was not Tallyfet. Was it Tallyfet?
I don't think so.
I mean, not according to the article in The Atlantic.
Ghost of Christmas Past.
No, not the Ghost of Christmas Past. Come on. No. Real guesses. Alien.
No, the aliens were just abducting him while he was driving.
So I'm pretty sure that everybody does actually know who was stealing from the jewelry store, but I will let Heather answer who was stealing from the jewelry store. Heather?
It was none other than Victor Barbish himself.
Oh my goodness.
Who could have predicted this turn of events?
I don't know. So Laura finally, we're talking 50 years, Laura finally begins to ask questions and is immediately ostracized from the Barbish family.
Immediately.
Cut off.
Yeah.
But then what happened, Heather?
So in 2008, Victor Barbish finally passes to another plane.
Woo!
Yay! To Barbish over there. What? Hopefully with fact checking. Peacefully at home with his wife, Laura's aunt. So then Laura's aunt actually had keepsakes made with his ashes and gave them to their 4 children and not to Laura. And Laura was like, why didn't I get a thing? That's not right. And she's like, you're nothing. You're not related to him in any way except through me. And Laura's like, wait, what?
Oh, wow. So much noses.
Yeah. Yes. So much noses on Borzoi. Yeah. They're like... So now she is not only questioning him, like she started questioning, the cracks were there, but now the water is just starting to pour out of the dam. And she is like, wait a second. So if that wasn't true...
Why don't you go ahead and go to all the way to plot twist?
Okay, so he skipped there? Okay.
Well, no, don't skip there. Just keep going
okay.
until there.
So in his will, because Barbished until after his own death, in his will, he claims he was swindled out of his wealth.
He was swindled.
He was
so Barbished.
Yes. So
somebody Barbished him out of his wealth.
Who could have done that?
I don't know.
So Laura and Robert Horn hire lawyers to try to get some of their money back because Robert's given him $100,000 and Laura's given him 2 life insurance payments and the sale of her house plus her pension. So yeah, there's nothing left to them anymore. And of course he didn't have her in the will at all. In their attempt to get the money back, of course they're threatened by the Barbish family because if somebody's the godfather, why not continue it in the family line, right? So now she's been unraveling. She got together with a friend of hers from loss prevention, and they have been picking at all the loose threads and have been unraveling all
and good
of
Lord,
these,
there are so many loose threads. Like how?
I don't even like the number of barbishments per day.
It is extraordinary.
It really is. So she's writing a book that she plans to self-publish, or at least as of 2018, this was the plan. This might actually have happened, and that'd be amazing. I'm actually interested to read it. So it's called The Last Con. Had plans to self-publish and tour the country, and she's returned to the church, but a special version of the Christian church that's a very metaphysical version, so very spiritualism mixed in with Christianity, and believes that she's being visited by her daughter Lisa in all sorts of different ways, and so that's really sweet. And you know, Laura is growing, which is a wonderful, amazing thing. We love to hear it.
And not just Lisa, also her second husband. Yes.
So all the people that she's lost besides the Barbisher.
Yeah.
So Barbish's estate is still tied up in disputes, which is shocking. But the really interesting part is that it's not all because of him. So he owed so much more money than actually existed in his estate, and who knows where he spent all the $5.5 million plus all of Laura's money and all of Robert's money, because the $5.5 million did not include any of that. That was the cold calling. I wish I could cold call and get $5.5 million.
I know, right? Me too.
So his assets cannot even begin to satisfy all of the claims against the estate, because a lot of people are like, hey, wait a minute. If that wasn't true, then was this true? So the litigants are trying to force a sale of the pearl to try to get their money back.
But there are some incidents that are holding this sale up. So we are going to turn it back to 1974 to some unrelated incidents that
was time travel backwards.
Oh, got it. To some seemingly unrelated incidents that are also wacky in completely different ways, but tie in with this crazy story that we are telling you. So, March 25th, 1974, Anne Phillips is riding in a Cadillac with her husband down the highway. Police lights go on behind them. They pull over like good citizens. And instead of a friendly police officer coming to write them a citation for a busted taillight or some such, no, there are masked thugs who shoot and dead knock her husband unconscious and flee into the night. On November 23rd, 1975, Eloise Bonicelli and her nephew are at Eloise's home. There is a knock at the door. The nephew answers the door and is... Anyone want to guess? Heather wants to guess. So, Eloise's nephew is shot dead. I'm pretty sure that was what you were going to guess.
That was my guess!
And then Eloise was also shot dead. She was discovered when the police came to the home, curled in the fetal position in her bedroom, dead of a single gunshot wound to the chest. So, 1974 and 1975, we've got Anne Phillips and Eloise Bonicelli murder. For 25 years, their murders went unsolved. And it was really not clear, like, where there was a break in the case, but it turns out that both husbands had two things in common. Number one, they were both investors in the Pearl of Lao Tzu. Number two, they had both hired hitmen to kill their wives. So Anne Phillips' husband is the one who confessed to the crime of arranging his wife's murder. Apparently, he engaged a local barber to connect him with a hitman who pretended to kill them both kill his wife in a routine traffic stop. But then, and that was for her life insurance. It was a $300,000 life insurance policy. But then he was so pleased with the way that this had gone for him.
Excellent customer service.
Yeah, that he recommended to his friend, Mr. Bonicelli, who was about to be embroiled in a bitter and complicated divorce, that maybe he should exercise the same option. So Phillips, having had his wife murdered, was like, hey dude, I've got this guy. And,
he's a barber.
He did me a solid. And, I think that you should look him up. So Bonicelli engaged the same barber and had his wife killed because he did not want to go through a drawn out and bitter divorce. But here's the, I feel weird saying here's the crazy thing at this point.
Yes, this is the crazy
Here's
thing.
a crazy thing. So Bonicelli dies. The state conducts a posthumous trial 7 years after Bonicelli dies. And Mr. Phillips is a witness at the posthumous trial, testifying that he connected Bonicelli with the barber who connected him with the hitman. And for this, Phillips gets complete immunity for arranging his own wife's murder.
Yes, immunity for testifying against someone who is not even alive anymore.
No, Bonicelli unalived at this point. Like, not purposefully.
Not by someone.
Naturally. Like, yeah. So yeah, he gets immunity for testifying at a posthumous trial. And, excuse me. Sorry. So, because both Phillips and Bonicelli were investors in the Pearl of Lao Tzu, all of this, and so I'm gonna take the next bullets, and then you can take the last one.
Okay.
So, Eloise's kids file suit against their father's new wife and children, to whom he left everything, despite the fact that he had their mother murdered. And they are eventually awarded $32 million in a wrongful death settlement. At that point, that was the largest wrongful death settlement that had ever been awarded by the state of Colorado. But all of this, since both of these men had stakes in the Pearl, now they're both dead. Theoretically, these stakes transfer to their children, their heirs, to the whoever. This is all, again, tying up the Pearl in legal disputes and making it impossible to sell.
Yes.
So
Peter Hoffman,
remember him?
Is still around and still owns part of the Pearl of Lao Tzu. And so it's legally divided now between him and Barbish's estate. And Eloise Bonicelli's children are entitled to half of Barbish's share if the Pearl is sold. Remember,
somebody call Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah.
or Ferdinand Marcos.
Ferdinand Marcos.
Or Osama bin Laden. Oh,
yes,
wait.
No.
No.
Well, Osama bin Laden's people were held up at Canadian customs, so they just couldn't make it.
And there was somebody in there who had a heart attack and bled to death.
Yes.
I don't even think we touched on that.
No. So I don't know if you remember from last time, but this pearl has been for sale now for like 70 years. And there have been so many almost takers who all pull out at the last second. And the pearl has been, if only some other people had pulled out at the last second.
Fair.
So the pearl has been valued everywhere from the 200. So the only concrete number we have for the pearl in its history is that Victor Barbish bought the pearl for $200,000. It has been valued by lots of people with agendas. Anywhere from, $100,000 to like $59.2 million or whatever. So court battles are continuing over the sale of the pearl, which is now valued at about $100,000. So not even as much as its sale back in the 50s, 60s, somewhere.
Right, and $200,000 then
was a lot
more than $100,000 now. So yeah, the pearl has managed to depreciate significantly.
Yeah, if it ever really had
all
that much. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Barbish's family, of course, because they've been Barbished their whole lives, and they're like, why not continue the tradition? So they are definitely the kind to possibly leave a horse's head. Please don't come after me, Barbish.
And Mimi would carry that horse's head somewhere else and proceed to eat its eyes. And I think that would actually be more disturbing.
That would be worse.
That would
so
be
much
worse.
But they continue to insist that the pearl is priceless and a religious artifact. And they also continue to insist that it has been carbon dated to 6,000 years old and all of this other stuff, and it has never been subjected to radiocarbon dating, by the way. There have been people who have described the pearl, because remember, this is a non-nacreous pearl, so it looks a bit like porcelain more than a pearl.
What is it?
It is a calcium carbonate concretion.
Yes, thank you.
So it is, I like that Allison pointed out the part of the article where one of the people who's asked about the original estimate of, like, the original speculation by Lee Sparrow, where he speculated that the pearl might be worth as much as $40 to $42 million in 1967. He had thoughts, like his idea seemed to have been that if he could get the selling price of the pearl up, he would get a much bigger portion of the sale. But someone said about his estimation, well, it's legal to say that this is a valuable pearl, but it's pretty silly. It is not terribly attractive.
No, it's not. It's not attractive at all.
No, it's been described as wrinkled, a deformed brain, a blob. It does rather, if whatever you see in your brain when you hear the phrase calcium carbonate concretion, that's what it looks like, but a little bit shinier.
I'm going to go with deformed brain.
Deformed brain.
The most...
Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now the family has the pearl and they still want to say that it's amazing and everything, but there's another pearl that has been found that is supposedly 75 pounds, which dwarfs the 14 pounds.
Yes.
This is the pearl. So apparently the 75-pound pearl was found, like, it is very much like polishing a turd. But it's not as shiny as if you did that. No nacre. But yeah, the diver who had the 75-pound pearl, apparently the story behind that is he found it and he stuck it under his bed as a good luck charm. Yep. How you find a pearl and swim with the pearl that weighs 75 pounds up to the surface is entirely beyond me.
Well, he said that the clam got stuck on his anchor. So theoretically there was a winch involved.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
But then you still have to,
It's still, yeah. It's still a non-nacreous pearl. It is not a pretty pearl. It's another shiny turd of a pearl.
A pearl of Puerto, according to Mary the librarian.
Got it. So the family is admitting lightly admitting that, not fully admitting, lightly admitting that perhaps they've missed their moment with this pearl, but that doesn't diminish the power and the righteousness of this religious artifact that they have, and it's just here to make peace for the world, and it's still the Pearl of Lao Tzu, the most famous and precious pearl ever to have existed.
So that is, and so this is as of 2018.
So things are still going on.
So the pearl, so I did not have time to research where exactly is the pearl now, but the Pearl of Lao Tzu still exists in the world, and I will do a quick Google and post on Discord what exactly is happening with the pearl now, but
better not be very far down.
right. But yes, so this is a tale of
barbishing something into prettiness.
Yeah, of I don't even know what the moral. What is the moral of this story, Heather?
Never
Aside
listen to
from-
Victor Barbish.
Listen to Victor Barbish. But seriously, so this, no, I feel like if we're gonna take an overarching perspective on this is literally turning a sow's ear into a silk purse.
Yes.
Because this is a sow's ear. This is a concretion of a lumpy, nasty pearl, and it went through the hands of several consummate con artists. I mean, you do have to, in some kind of backhanded way, give credit to both Cobb and Barbish for just being utterly ridiculous and somehow managing to beguile people and sell their stories, whilst also being sympathetic for all the people who were hurt along the way. By all of their insanity. So I guess the moral of the story that I am taking away, and I'll let Heather say what she's taking away from the story in a minute, but what I'm taking away is just because somebody tells you the sow's ear is a silk purse doesn't mean that it's not just a sow's ear. So that's my takeaway. Heather, what's your takeaway?
The pen is mightier than the product.
Okay, that's
so
also fair.
Yeah. I mean, it's nothing but advertising and propaganda.
It's true,
and we know very well how absolutely powerful words are. And so this is a prime example of how words have made something that isn't inherently valuable into something that's mythical. I mean, whether it's valuable or not,
right? But
not
then
even the question anymore.
The creation of the myth has not translated into any actual monetary value, which is crazy.
Yeah,
that people keep speculating on this thing that's got no concrete value of any measurable
no
proportion.
concretion value at all.
No concretion value at all. So that, folks, is the Pearl of Lao Tzu and the crazy story thereof. I will also say that, just advice from the Beating Dreams stream, if anybody offers you a 14-pound pearl for $200,000, just say no.
I don't care if their last name is Barbish or not.
Yeah, just
because they might be in hiding.
Yeah, just don't do it.
Yeah.
But that is going to be the conclusion of episode 2 of the Pearl of Lao Tzu. So thank you all so much for hanging out with us and speculating with us and guessing with us. So next podcast, which is going to be a week from today at 7:30 p.m., is going to pull from, excuse me, the curious lore of precious gemstones. So I'm going to find some cool things in there. For
Probably
Heather
not quite as crazy as this.
Probably not. Well, okay, but
we'll see.
But the whole gemstones procreating thing.
True. I mean, if you put enough Barry White on, I think they do. We just haven't put enough.
Yeah,
Barry White.
there's some crazy stuff still in store. So yeah. Keiko says if she has $200,000, she's not spending it on a big lumpy blob.
No.
If I have $200,000, the only big lumpy blob I'm spending it on is
Jason.
myself.
Yes, exactly. I mean, if you're gonna spend $200,000 on a big lumpy blob, you have 2 to consider right here, and we're so much more fun.
Absolutely. So thank y'all so much for hanging out.
And whiter and prettier.
I think we might be shinier than the Pearl of Lao Tzu just because we are so very pale.
Yeah.
Okay, so then thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of The Button List with Allison and Heather.
You can catch the Button List weekly on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube.
And you can watch our complimentary live tutorials every Wednesday and Friday at 6 p.m. Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, and twitch.tv/vegan. Night, everyone.